In this last section, we're going to look at trust. And trust is massive in negotiations. There is a premium, a huge premium for having trust in a negotiation. And there is a tax, if you like, if you can't trust. But sadly, we can't always trust. So how do we resolve this, given that we're better off if we can, but we can't always do it? So what we're going to look at is a framework that is a solution for that. And it's around the idea of trust but verify. Trust but verify was a catchphrase that was used by Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan when they were negotiating the nuclear arms disarmament treaties. Here were two empires built on each other's destruction who found themselves in a mutually assured destruction deathlock, and they had to extricate themselves from that deathlock. But in order to extricate themselves, they had to trust the other party, and they couldn't. So what did they do? So they came up with this idea of trust but verify. Reagan and Gorbachev built a brilliant relationship where they could trust each other, but they couldn't necessarily trust the other people behind that who were going to implement it. So hence the trust but verify. So do trust, there's value in doing it, but have the verification procedures in place. And it's having those verification procedures in place that will enable you to trust. So there are different stages to this process. The first stage is seek to trust because there is value in trusting, as we've seen. The second stage is to know whether you can trust or not. And we answer this by thinking along lines of, what's their track record? Have they delivered before? Have they followed up on their promises before? But also, it's consider their culture. What's the culture from which they're operating? Is that a culture of trust or not? Now, we're not just talking about geographical culture, although that's an aspect. It's also things like industry. What's the norms within their industry? Is it one of high levels of trust or not? Consider these things. It's also, can you tune into the body language signs, the indicators of whether they are maybe being evasive, maybe they are moving the conversation away from a particular topic, maybe they're being very vague, maybe they're doing those telltale things that poker players know, they've got their hand over their mouth, or they're not giving you eye contact, or these kinds of things. Tune into those to get that sense of, do I think I can trust them or not? Thirdly, increase their trustability. Now, if you've done everything that we've talked about on this course to date, 99 times out of 100, they're going to be trustable. You're offering them win-win solutions. You've got a strong plan B, so you're willing to walk away if necessary. You've built great relationship and you're projecting strength. Well, they're going to be trustable. But there are more things that you can do. There is a whole new field of research around this, around the chemical oxytocin, quite interestingly. Oxytocin is the bonding chemical. It is the chemical of trust. And there are things that you can do to increase people's oxytocin levels and therefore increase their trustability. There's a great book on this topic, which I can recommend. It's called The Moral Molecule by Dr. Paul Zak. So I'd recommend having a look at that book. Then lastly, know what to do if you really cannot trust them. If you have to work with them and you really cannot trust them. And to be honest, the first thing to do is actually, if you can't trust them, walk away. If you really can't trust them, walk away if that's open to you. If that really isn't available to you and you have to work with them, then there are still things you can do, like get support, like project greater strength. And there is a great tactic, which we're going to look at right now, called Tit for Tat +1, which we're going to look at in detail, that works in these kinds of situations. Professor Robert Axelrod, a mathematician at Michigan University, invited people to submit computer programs to play a game called The Prisoner's Dilemma. Now, The Prisoner's Dilemma is exactly that situation where people are better off if they collaborate, but they can't always trust the other person. And if they can't trust, then they're worse off if they try to collaborate. So what do you do? So he invited people to submit computer programs to play that game to see if there was a strategy that worked best. So loads of people submitted programs of all kinds and varieties. Some were always cheat and be tricky. Some were always collaborate. Some were alternate, collaborate, then cheat. Some were collaborate, 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 and then sneakily cheat, or all kinds of variations. Then he played all of these programs against each other hundreds of times. And if you like, this is a little bit like life. Some people you can always trust, some people you can never trust, some people you can trust some of the time, and so on. So what was the solution? It turned out that there was a winner, a clear winner. And it was the program that was called, it was actually one of the simplest programs, and it was called Tit for Tat Plus One. It started off with collaborating. So always start by collaborating. And then you follow what they do. If they collaborate back, well, you do so. You continue collaborating. But if they start playing a tough game, they start playing hardball, well, you play hardball back. If they go back to collaboration, great, you go back to collaboration. If they go back to hardball, you go back to hardball. Now, the +1 bit is to allow margin, because we don't always know for certain whether that trick was deliberate or accidental. Maybe there's an extra 0 appeared in the spreadsheet. Well, was that deliberate or was it accidental? We don't really know. So if we think that if that's the first time that they've tried to do something sneaky, allow margin. Don't necessarily play hardball back straight away. Instead, communicate your intentions that if they play a collaborative game, you'll play a collaborative game. If they play a tough game, you'll play a tough game, and then continue. Now, if it happens again, then you definitely play hardball back. So to give you an example of that, in hostage situations, you normally have the gently spoken hostage negotiator talking, and you also have the SWAT team who are ready to go in, all guns blazing. And every time that the hostage taker collaborates and is being cooperative, the hostage negotiator talks more and is more cooperative themselves, maybe allows food in, maybe allows them to communicate with the outside world, this kind of thing. But every time the hostage taker stops cooperating, the SWAT team edge a little bit closer. And that twin track approach has proved very, very successful in hostage situations.